caught her husband cheating right in front of her eyes. The next day, she went to the restaurant, determined to confront the woman he was with. But when she saw the girl's sweet face, it reminded her so much of her late daughter. Before she could say a word, tears started streaming down her face. April, noticing her distress, kindly handed her a tissue and tried to comfort her. This unexpected kindness softened Beth Ann's hostility. She was about to leave, but April stopped her. Sensing that something must be bothering Beth Ann, April offered to help. With a warm smile, she suggested they share their frustrations about life. Maybe they could even become friends. What she said struck a chord with Beth Ann. She realized she could use this connection to find out why her husband cheated on her, hoping it might help her win back his heart. Beth Ann became a regular at the restaurant, using her neighbor Sheila's name and pretending to April that she was a widow. Over time, they became more familiar with each other. During one of their chats, Beth Ann discovered that April knew her so-called boyfriend was married. Feigning curiosity, Beth Ann asked the question that had been haunting her. Why would the married man cheat on his wife? April quietly told Beth Ann, men need more than just their lives taken care of. They also crave excitement and passion. The latter is something many housewives forget. Her words hit Beth Ann like a punch to the gut. At home, she opened her photo album and saw her hairstyle, unchanged for 10 years. Was this the reason her husband had fallen out of love with her? After a long time, she finally stepped into a store and bought new clothes, shoes, and perfume, completely transforming herself from head to toe. When her husband returned home, she made a stunning entrance. In an instant, all her anticipation turned into awkwardness. At the dinner table, Beth Ann still didn't give up, hoping her husband would notice the changes she had made. But it wasn't until she mentioned the price of her new clothes that he finally reacted, questioning why she had bought such expensive outfits. But this made Beth Ann start to wonder. If she hadn't done anything wrong, why would her husband cheat? The only reason she could think of was that girl, April. Beth Ann shared her plan with her neighbor, Sheila. She decided she was going to become good friends with April and convince her to stay away from Rob. After all, a friend's words are always easier to listen to. Beth Ann had already made her plan. She managed to steal the business proposal Rob had been working on, leaving him frantic and panicked. Now, with April standing her up, she had no choice but to turn to Beth Ann, inviting her to join her instead. Beth Ann showed up, expecting April to feel upset about being stood up by Rob. To her surprise, April didn't seem to care at all. It turned out she wasn't serious about Rob, let alone considering marrying him. Hearing this, Beth Ann felt a wave of relief, but also found herself even more puzzled. When April started talking about pursuing her dreams, she couldn't stop. The confidence and passion in her voice brought back memories of the dreams Beth Ann had buried long ago. Because of her husband's constant disapproval, Beth Ann hadn't touched the piano in years. But April encouraged her not to let everything revolve around her husband. She deserved to pursue her own dreams too. Back home, Beth Ann walked over to the piano. As the first note rang out, her long-lost love for music reignited. She played with passion, losing herself in the melody. Just then, Rob walked in behind her, asking for olives and insisting that she fetch them for him. Still immersed in her playing, Beth Ann refused. Frustrated, Rob headed to the kitchen himself but stopped halfway, fuming. How could his once obedient wife dare to ignore his request? Under her husband's insistence, Beth Ann had no choice but to stop playing and head to the kitchen. In that moment, a feeling she couldn't quite describe stirred inside her. The olives were on the top shelf of the fridge, but he claimed he couldn't see them. Beth Ann knew he wasn't blind to them. He just wanted to boss her around. She understood this all too well, but years of complying with his every demand had left her unable to summon the courage to push back. Listening to her husband's demands, Beth Ann said nothing. She walked over to the piano and sat down. But after a brief pause, she ultimately closed the lid. At the same time, she found herself increasingly looking forward to every meeting with April. April brought a sense of novelty and excitement into her life. The freedom to ignore others' gazes and live without restraint was something Beth Ann, always the obedient wife, had never experienced. April's boldness and enthusiasm seemed to rub off on her. During a dinner at Rob's boss's house, Beth Ann left such a strong impression on the couple that they urged Rob to cherish such an amazing wife. Thinking back on everything that had changed recently, Rob finally began to see Beth Ann in a new light. One day, he invited her to join him for a baseball game that evening, completely forgetting that it was the night of April's first public performance. For Beth Ann, it should have been a good thing that her husband was choosing her over his mistress. But through the door, she overheard April on the phone, heartbroken over Rob's absence. In that moment, Beth Ann couldn't help but feel sympathy for April. Finally, just before they were about to leave, she made a decision. Pretending to feel unwell, she told Rob to go to the game without her. As soon as he left, she called April, promising to be there to cheer her on. That evening, as April's performance began, Beth Ann watched her friend shine on stage. She couldn't help but feel proud of April's success. But for April, the evening wasn't as wonderful as she had imagined. In response to Beth Ann's concern, she finally revealed the real reason she was so distracted tonight. After learning that April had fallen for Rob, Beth Ann didn't get angry or upset. Instead, she gently urged April to get some rest and not to dwell too much on Rob's absence that evening. But just as Beth Ann was about to leave April's home, she spotted Rob suddenly arriving downstairs. Panicking, she quickly excused herself, claiming she had a stomachache, and hid in the bathroom, quietly listening to what was happening outside. April was thrilled by Rob's unexpected arrival and couldn't help but confess her feelings for him. However, Rob instantly pushed her away. Rob firmly stated that he would never leave his wife, scolding April for crossing the line before storming off in anger. When Beth Ann stepped out of the bathroom, she found only a tearful April, forcing a smile to hide her pain. Her heart ached at the sight, and she couldn't help but step forward to embrace her. When Beth Ann returned home, she found Rob already asleep on the couch. He had rejected April and chosen his family. But having witnessed a young woman's heartbreak, Beth Ann couldn't find any pride in winning back such a man. She gazed at her reflection in the mirror. Was this really the kind of marriage she had dreamed of as a child? Beth Ann didn't have the answer. The next day, Rob seemed to transform back into the loving husband he once was. He promised to come home for dinner every night and even brought out a photo of their late daughter, a memory they had long avoided discussing. By addressing it openly, it felt like he was trying to rebuild their connection. The couple decided to host a housewarming party to celebrate their move into the new home. The party was lively, filled with music, laughter, and dancing, as if all the past troubles had dissolved into the festive atmosphere. But just as Rob was dancing with one of the neighbor's husband suddenly erupted in anger. To win back her unfaithful husband, she pretended to be a widow and became friends with the other woman. But just as her husband, Rob, decided to return to the family, she discovered that the other woman, April, was pregnant. This news left Beth Ann terrified. Ever since the loss of their daughter, she hadn't been able to conceive, while Rob had always longed for a child. If he found out about April's pregnancy, would he still choose to come back to her? Beth Ann was consumed with fear. After confiding in her neighbor Sheila urged her to come clean to Rob about everything. Sheila told her she couldn't keep running away from this and asked if she hadn't had enough of the lies. With no other options, Beth Ann finally took Sheila's advice. She prepared a lavish dinner and dressed herself up, ready to tell her husband about the whole situation. But when the moment came, she couldn't hold back her tears. Stumbling over her words, she confessed her love for Rob and kept repeating how scared she was. Seeing Beth Ann in such a state, Rob was worried and confused. His mind raced, and he somehow came to the conclusion that Beth Ann must be seriously ill. This misunderstanding gave Beth Ann an idea. Since she couldn't bring herself to confess that she knew about Rob's affair, why not go along with his assumption? She decided to pretend she had cancer, claiming she only had 6 months to live, hoping this would win back his heart. As for April and her pregnancy, Beth Ann already had a plan. She would convince April to keep the baby, then have her give it up for adoption, and find a way to adopt it herself. Once everything was settled, Beth Ann would miraculously recover from her cancer, and they would continue their lives as if nothing had happened. This way, April could leave to chase her dream of becoming a singer. Rob would finally have the child he always wanted, and their family could remain whole. Everyone would be happy. Beth Ann's plan was nothing more than a ridiculous way to avoid the ugly truth, but she had already made up her mind to go through with it, convinced it was the best solution for everyone. However, that very night she received a call from April. 6 months. That was exactly the timeline Beth Ann had told Rob, claiming her cancer would leave her with only 6 months to live. As April spoke on the phone, Beth Ann could no longer focus on what she was saying. Everything was unfolding just as Sheila had predicted. Her idea of everyone would be happy was nothing but wishful thinking. She had naively avoided confronting her husband's betrayal, hoping to maintain a fragile facade of peace. But in the end, all she received was complete abandonment and betrayal. After that, the more Beth Ann looked at Rob, the more she despised him. She smiled at her husband on the surface, but inside, hatred grew. Did she really need a marriage so tragic and filled with betrayal? Removing her wedding ring, Beth Ann decided to leave her husband. But as she packed her things, she paused at a family photo of the three of them. It reminded her of the day her daughter passed away in a car accident. It had been an ordinary afternoon. Emily had received a birthday gift from her aunt. Before they entered the house, Beth Ann noticed the trash bin in the yard. She told her daughter to wait there and then opened the door to drag the bin inside. Once back inside, the family had a cheerful conversation, but Beth Ann spotted a button on the floor. She thought it had fallen from Rob's clothes. Rob quickly took it away, and Beth Ann didn't notice the panic in his eyes. Later, Emily asked to play in the backyard, so Beth Ann opened the door for her. She even peeked through the window to confirm that Emily was playing outside. But soon after, the sound of screeching brakes reached her ears, and Beth Ann suddenly realized something. She rushed to the window and saw Emily's little red ball lying by the roadside. Did she lock the door that day? Did she really lock the backyard gate? As Rob's repeated questioning continued, Beth Ann felt disoriented. She couldn't remember what had happened back then. For many years afterward, she blamed herself for her daughter's death. It was her guilt over Rob that made her tolerate his betrayal. But now, things had come to this point, and Beth Ann could no longer bear to stay with her husband. She had made up her mind to let Rob and April be together. With her bags packed, Beth Ann went to Rob's office, ready to ask for a divorce in person. Upon hearing her decision, the secretary looked conflicted, hesitantly telling Beth Ann that Rob was currently on a date with another woman. After taking a deep breath, the secretary finally revealed a secret she had kept for years. It wasn't just April. Rob had been unfaithful many times, and she had been one of those women. That day, Beth Ann and her daughter came home early. They didn't have time to hide and rushed downstairs. The secretary tried to slip into the closet, but Rob, afraid of being caught, told her to leave through the back door. Due to her role in Emily's tragic accident, the secretary had carried guilt for all these years. As the secretary tearfully confessed, Beth Ann forced herself to calm down and steady her nerves, then asked the most important question. At that moment, Beth Ann felt utterly heartbroken. Her husband's betrayal not only led to Emily's tragic accident, but in the face of the truth, he had shifted all the blame onto her. Thinking of her poor daughter, Beth Ann's anger grew wild. She swore she would make Rob pay for his actions. Beth Ann reached out to her neighbor, Mary, with a plan to take down both their husbands. Unable to bear her own jealous and violent husband any longer, Mary agreed to collaborate. Mary wrote a farewell letter to her husband, filled with affection for Rob. Meanwhile, Beth Ann packed up Mary's belongings into her car, creating the illusion that Mary had left. When Mary's husband came home and found the letter, just as expected, he was furious. Grabbing a handgun from the nightstand, he set out to confront Rob. Everything was witnessed by Mary, who was hiding under the bed. As soon as her husband left, she quickly contacted Beth Ann. When the doorbell rang, Beth Ann thought it was her neighbor, but to her surprise, it was April. Having learned the truth through Sheila, April had come to confront Beth Ann and Rob. Before the three of them could exchange words, the neighbor barged in, furious and ready to confront Rob. Beth Ann quickly ushered April upstairs, then rushed into the kitchen, grabbed the gun she had already prepared, and tossed it to Rob. He turned to her, only to see a cryptic smile on her face. Just moments ago, Beth Ann had given him a chance. She had brought up the day of their daughter's tragic accident and asked him if he had been hiding something. As planned, Rob fell to the ground. After years of forced smiles, Beth Ann finally allowed herself to smile, a smile that came from the heart. Years later, Beth Ann sold the mansion and was ready to start a new life. There was a young girl by her side, April's child. Beth Ann had raised her, and now, they were about to leave for New York to reunite with April, who had become a Broadway star. And with that, Beth Ann's story comes to an end. Why Women Kill is a TV series that aired in 2019, telling the stories of three women from different time periods. I chose Beth Ann's story, the one that left the deepest impression on me, to make this video. It's also, in my opinion, the most well-rounded story of the series. Due to time constraints, I had to cut out many details, so I still recommend watching the series yourself to fully enjoy all the fun it brings. Do you prefer that I talk about TV shows or movies? Feel free to leave your opinions in the comments section. See you in the next video.